Great. Again, I'm Matt Olin. I'm the co-founder of Charlotte is Creative. Welcome to this session that is called Developing a Strong Grant Proposal and Budget. Of course, this is all a part of the Spring 2024 Opportunity Fund session here. So before we get started, this session is being translated into Spanish by our partners over at Into Languages. And so I want to introduce Dennis, who can just go over the instructions for any Spanish speakers that want to take advantage of this feature. So Dennis, if you could do that, please.
Bienvenidos a todos. Toda la comunidad que habla español, se les invita, por favor, a seguir las siguientes instrucciones. Una vez que ingresan a la reunión de Zoom, en la parte de abajo donde tenemos las diferentes opciones, al lado del botón de reacciones, como está aquí seleccionado en un círculo, existe el botón de interpretación. Una vez que ingresen al botón de interpretación, por favor, necesito que seleccionen el idioma español y van a poder escuchar a su intérprete en tiempo real. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Dennis. Appreciate that. And I'm glad to be partnering with Into Languages on this feature. So again, welcome everyone to this Opportunity Fund session on developing a strong grant proposal and budget. Again, please do keep yourself muted during this session. And as questions come up, please do drop them in the chat. We're going to get to as many of those as possible near the end of the session. So with this round of the Opportunity Fund, we've been talking about this new feature that's been included, which is that professional grant writing coaches are being made available to all applicants who advance to the full proposal phase. And they will be providing complimentary coaching and support to those applicants, sort of assisting them in developing really strong proposals. Those coaches are none other than Whitney Martinez with Absolute Impact Consulting and Autumn Peck and her team from Scribe, both of whom you'll be hearing from shortly. And while these one-on-one grant writing coaching sessions will be available specifically for those who advance to the full proposal phase, even before that, everyone can benefit from these two free community sessions that we're doing on basically grant writing best practices. This is the first one that we're doing right now. And then there's going to be an in-person workshop happening this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. at the CPCC PAR Center uptown, which you still have time to sign up for, and we can drop that link, in the chat session there. With that, before we dive in, we want to take a moment to kind of get grounded and centered. And to do that, we have Eternity Phillips. They are a creative arts and wellness professional with a multidisciplinary focus on literary art through poetry and short stories, visual art through natural photography, and Afrocentric yoga supporting Black wellness. Eternity is going to help us reset and refocus with a brief centering activity. So I'll hand it off to Eternity.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay, even if you cannot see me? All right, fantastic. This exercise is completely optional. Always listen to yourself if there is something that you cannot do or should not do for your body, but this would be very, very simple. We're going to start off with just some breath and do some little bit of movement, and then go back to centering our breath. Right? So everyone should be seated, so make sure you are seated in a way that supports your back. We're going to start off by taking a deep inhale and bringing the arms up, reaching up high, and you're really stretching your back here, lifting the chest, focusing, going really deep on the inhale. On the exhale, bring the hands down. All right, now we're going to do it again. Take a deep inhale, bring the arms up, and exhale, bring the hands down. Take a moment, deep inhale through the nose, slow exhale through the mouth. If you are comfortable closing your eyes, please do so. Again, deep inhale through the nose, slow exhale through the mouth. As you continue to breathe at your own pace, allow yourself to be present in this moment. Allow yourself to feel where you are, and remember why you are here. Remember the project, the art, the community that you serve, whatever it is that has brought you to these sessions, whatever it is that you wish to have funded, whatever it is that you're working toward, bring that to the forefront of your mind. Remember what drives you. The inhale, slow exhale, centering our mind to be present in this moment to gather the information that we need, releasing anything that does not serve us, any anxiety, any worry, any fear, releasing that through the exhale. And on the inhale, you're bringing in, again, who you serve, why you do what you do. I'm going to take another deep inhale, lifting up the arms once more. Really stretch. We're going to come over to one side. Inhale back up. Exhale to the other side. Inhale back up once more. Really stretch, lift this chest. Open the chest, exhale, bring the arms down. Take one more moment just in stillness. Remember why you are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trinity. I know I needed that. And I really appreciate that. I know we all do. So thank you. And now that we are centered and grounded, I want to get things going by handing things off to the City of Charlotte's Arts and Culture Officer, Priya Sarkar, who's going to kick off this session on developing a strong grant proposal and budget. So off to you, Priya.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Eternity. That was great. I really appreciate that grounding and opening opportunity. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm so excited to see so many of you here joining our City of Charlotte team with our partners, Charlotte is Creative and Into Languages, to learn more about the Opportunity Fund, and in particular, to talk about how to develop a strong proposal and budget. We're going to be focusing on a couple things. As Matt said, certainly it's about how you can have strong proposals and budgets, generally speaking, and this is something we hope will help you not only through this Opportunity Fund grant cycle, but also in future endeavors. That's one of our goals. But we also will talk about things a little bit from the lens of this opportunity, this grant in particular, what we at the city with our Infusion Fund partners are, what our goal is, for this cycle. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that before I hand it over to our partners. This is a little of, this is what you're in for. And we do thank you for your interest in the Opportunity Fund and for taking time out of your busy day to tune in. Let's go ahead and go to the next thing. So what is the Opportunity Fund? Why did we create that? And what is different about it this time? So just to share a little bit of context for everyone, because some of you might be familiar with past rounds of the Opportunity Fund, or you may not. And there are some things that are a little different this time. So next slide, please. We'll just talk about that. So as you may know, the Opportunity Fund is a part of a larger partnership called the Infusion Fund, which is a partnership among the City of Charlotte and private sector partners through the Foundation for the Carolinas and other private donors. And this has been a three-year fund, which ends June 30th, 2024, which has been to stabilize the arts and culture sector and also infuse dollars throughout all corners of the arts and culture community to help sustain and grow arts and culture while we developed a long-term arts and culture plan. Many of you were part of shaping that plan, the Charlotte Arts and Culture Plan, which was accepted by City Council last November and which we're now moving into implementation of. So thank you also for all of the insight and time and energy you put into shaping that plan and revision for the future of arts and culture in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. So the original goal and philosophy of the Opportunity Fund was when we established it, the Infusion Fund with the Arts and Culture Advisory Board's leadership a couple of years ago, was to use some of these funds that we had available in a way that might be different, that might be something that hasn't been tried before in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, and would add something to the resources that were already available, and maybe do something in a way that would help us address the needs and opportunities for our community in a way that we haven't done before. And so one of the things we recognized is that, you know, funders often have a cycle. They'll have like, you know, a few, you know, maybe one or two opportunities a year oftentimes. Certainly that has often been the case here. And however, you know, artists and creatives and organizations and groups are doing amazing work all the time. And they're also coming up with new ideas for projects and programs all the time. And so, whereas oftentimes folks are kind of waiting on funding through a particular cycle, we wanted to think about, could we address things more in a more timely manner and in a way that's more on the artist or organization's timeline for when they want to do a project or program, and a little bit less reliant on the funder's timeline. And so those are some of the reasons we established this Opportunity Fund as an experiment to try out what would it be like if we could offer kind of rapid response funding for timely projects that were popping up. And so in our initial iterations of the Opportunity Fund, which you may have participated in, we offered funding where it was on a rolling basis, and we did monthly cycles. We did 3 monthly cycles. And those went really well, and we had a great response, and we had really even more strong proposals than we had initially kind of thought we might be funding. And really want to thank the Art Advisory Board's leadership. They bumped up the amount of the number of dollars that they had thought of distributing through those initial rounds, and we were able to do even more. So then we did another round last spring. As we were in the home stretch of developing our arts and culture plan, unfortunately, we couldn't offer it as rapidly as we had done initially. And so we did need to do a spring cycle. And so the other piece that was really important too is we really wanted it to be an open call, because a lot of times when it's timely funding, you know, someone has something pop up and it's not, you know, you don't necessarily can't wait for, say, a next cycle that's happening a long time in the future. Sometimes it's kind of just personal connections you need to rely on to see if you can raise that money. And so what we wanted to do is make sure this was open to all who meet some basic eligibility requirements. And so we're able to do that. We're able to, you know, support a range of projects, a lot, not only by nonprofits, but individual artists and creatives and informal collectives and groups. And so we've been excited to continue that through the rounds we have done to date. We've been able to distribute $1.6 million to towards 70 projects. And so we're really excited that that is additional money going into the community beyond the sources that were already available. So now we're doing it this spring, and we're excited because what we're doing now is not only supporting your projects, programs, and initiatives that are new or that have a new element to them, but we're also now marrying that with the new Charlotte Arts and Culture Plan. And so now that we have this community vision and plan that has been created together, and that we all are going to need to play a role in realizing, the way that we're really launching implementation in a big way is by offering up to almost $1 million that's available to distribute through these grants to support your new or expanded projects, programs, and initiatives as they align with advancing the plan. And so that's one of the big things that's new. And the other piece is, as Matt mentioned, this new component that we're very excited about which is that we are partnering with Whitney and Autumn to provide assistance from them as grant writing coaches to help you not only have the strongest possible proposals for this particular funding opportunity, but also to strengthen your skills for future fundraising, future opportunities. And so through that, we hope that reduces or eliminates a barrier that sometimes our community members face, where some assistance, some guidance, some coaching could be helpful, but the cost sometimes is a barrier. And so again, we're really excited that the Arts and Culture Advisory Board has decided to take on that cost so that you don't have to worry about it. So again, delighted that that is a new component. It's something that isn't often, it's really, in my experience, rarely offered anywhere in the country. And so we're hoping that you will take advantage of that. And as Matt said, not only will there be one-on-one coaching available in the full proposal phase, but we wanted to make sure that the support from Autumn and Whitney is available now, to everyone. That's why we're doing this info session and a larger workshop on Saturday. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things that our review panels are going to be looking for, and that advisory board members will be thinking about as well as we move through this grant process. So one of the keys, as I mentioned, really is, how does a particular proposal advance the arts and culture plan? So we're asking you if you've taken a look at the LOI already, or you're working on it or submitted, you've seen that we're asking for you to select a particular priority and strategy in the plan that you feel your project, program, or initiative is most closely aligned with. Doesn't mean that it only has to align with one. There might be others too. In the full proposals phase, we'll have a chance to talk about that. But we definitely need to understand which one do you think it most closely aligns with, and how that is done. And so the other things we'll be thinking about, and this is pretty standard stuff for other, probably other potential funders as well, is whether the amount of the request seems appropriate to the overall project budget, whether the budget seems reasonable for the proposed activities, how feasible is the project seem to be. There's some various factors that play into that, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, but it has to do with the expertise of the team that's assembled, or you yourself as an individual, and how you've laid out your approach to the project, and the time frame, and the funding that it will require, the ability to raise or earn additional dollars if needed. So those are all factors that relate to how we would be assessing the feasibility of the project. And then other things that the advisory board has always prioritized for the Infusion Fund. It's always been a guiding principle that we're really interested in collaboration, and also in artists and creatives being paid what they're worth. And these are fundamental principles we've always sought to uphold through the Infusion Fund, and that includes Opportunity Fund grants. And so we'll be keeping an eye out for things like that. There are some other things that I won't read to you that are on the slide. All this information is available on the guidelines page. So do check that out. And if you have any questions, of course, you can ask us at any time. Next slide, please. So a little bit about reviewing the timeline. So this is, we're in the first stage right now. The deadline, if you haven't gotten it in yet, don't worry, you've got some time. 6 p.m. Eastern time on March 28th is the deadline. Our online platform will stop accepting applications at that time. And meanwhile, the team is reviewing LOIs that are coming in. They're reviewing them on a rolling basis. And we'll, some of you are probably already hearing back as to the eligibility of the project and of yourself as an applicant. And really just our goal at this point is to ensure that, yes, all the eligibility requirements are met. And if that's the case, you would then receive information on how to submit a full proposal. So of course, the sooner you get your LOI in, the sooner our team can get back to you, and the sooner you can have more time to work on the full proposal before that done. You can see the stage 2 milestones below on the slide. And one thing I just want to underscore is that the final award decisions will take place in June. We're following a very similar timeline to what we did last year. For those of you who might have participated last year, our board will vote on approving grants in its June meeting. And after that, we work with our partner, the Foundation for the Carolinas, who actually holds the grant agreements and distributes the payments to connect with awarded recipients to get the paperwork done and to get the checks. And that usually happens, depending on how quickly you get all that back, all the signed paperwork back from grantees to the foundation. The checks can be cut hopefully by the end of July. Sometimes it's the beginning of August. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about the project. Next slide. Okay, so I think I'm covering this one, and then we'll start to hand it off to some of our teammates. So this is one that I mentioned a little bit ago, but once again, because it is such a central element of this particular cycle of the Opportunity Fund, we just want to really reiterate that it needs to be clear, for your proposal to be a strong line, even for the letter of intent. It does need to be really clear what is the alignment, the strong alignment between your proposed new project, program, or initiative, or this new element that you're proposing to do with the arts and culture plan. And so that's why we ask you to look at the plan to select that alignment. Those links are in the guidelines and in the application itself. Not every single priority in a strategy in the overall plan is eligible, because there are certain things that just didn't make sense to offer up as community generated projects, but most of the things in the plan are eligible. And you'll be able to get into further detail with this in the full proposal. And that's where we really ask you to articulate as clearly as possible the ways that your project advances the things in the plan. And one thing that we'll mention is there are specific actions under each strategy of the plan, and your proposed project might advance one of those, and that's great. We could talk about that. But there might be, your project might advance a strategy in the plan in a way that's not listed as an action, and that's okay too. As long as you can clearly articulate how it does that, we're open to that. The actions listed in the plan are not necessarily exhaustive of all the potential solutions of how to achieve strategies. It's just, those are the solutions that were prioritized by the 8 task forces who wrote the plan. Next slide. And Seifi, I'm going to ask you, and I can't see anyone's faces right now, is I want to make sure that I am presenting the right slides and handing it over to Autumn and Whitney at the right time. Can you let me know?
Thank you, Priya. Yes, I think now we can hand it over to Autumn and Whitney, and we'll come back to you with the budget section. Thanks, Priya.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I'll be talking to you about a few of the formal full proposal questions, and then hand it over to Whitney for the second half. Today, since we have such a short time, we just want to go over some best practices for grant writing overall. And then during our one-on-one sessions, as well as the group sessions on Saturday, we can really kind of dig deeper into the application with your specific questions. So I always look at grants from a grant reviewer's perspective, like what is the reviewer going to think as they read this grant? So things to pay attention to right off the bat, if this is your first time or your 50th time writing a grant, is really think about the word limits. So sometimes, you'll need every single word to make your point or to prove your case for support. And other times you will not. So I would say, look at the word limits as a way to guide yourself on, okay, I have really made my point really well. If I continue to add to this, it may add some fluff that's not necessarily, that may not help the answer or not. So really just pay attention to the word limits. Also, an additional review from another person is always great because they may bring up questions that you may not see as a person who's really closely aligned with the program and the organization. Their questions may be the same questions that a grant reviewer might have. So always have another person review your grant. And then the easiest one is spell check and grammar check. Make sure that it's grammatically correct and spelling error free so that, again, if there's 100 grants and yours is number 100 that a grant reviewer is reading, you're really making it easy for them to understand your case of support, not have grammatical or spelling errors guide their judgment or in their way. So the first question that I'll be talking about is the project description. So you want to describe the project, program, or initiative. And the good thing is they really have listed the exact questions that they want answered. So you really want to think about, why is your project, program, or initiative important right now? What problem does it solve or gap does it fill? And what do you aim to achieve? So you can address each question individually. So when we think about why is this important right now, we want to express the urgency of why this program is imperative to the community right now. You can cite specific sources. You can have anecdotal information as well, but you really just want to be clear on why right now is the time. As we look at the gaps or the problems that it solves, again, you really want to be specific with that. Again, you can cite specific sources from around the, really specific to the city of Charlotte, but you really want to be able to articulate what the issue is. What aim do you hope to achieve? That's, again, you're talking about your goals for the program. And then the last question is, who will the project benefit and how? So is there a specific sector? Will this be citywide? Will it be appreciated across the city? And then you want to talk about your challenges. So, sometimes people say, well, I won't have any challenges, or, we don't anticipate anything. But if you talk about the challenges or the conditions during this grant, what this grant funding will address, it really shows your full grasp of not only what you want to do, but what is actually taking place around the city that will benefit from your program. The next question is the project approach. How will you accomplish your project? And what are the steps and the timeline for the activities in your project, program, or initiative? So again, we're looking at that who, what, when, and how. You really want to be specific and lay out the specific activities that you'll take to accomplish your goals. Who is involved with that? Whether it's somebody who is yet to be hired, what type of qualifications that you want them to have, your current staff, but really be specific about those activities and think through actually what is the timing that it's going to take. Again, it shows full grasp of what your project is, and then it makes it easy for the grant reviewer to see what exactly that you'll accomplish. Next slide, please. And then we want to look at your target audience and your audience and target constituencies. Who are your audiences or target constituencies? And is this project open to the public, or does it expand access to artists, or audiences in the same way? So again, you really, as a part of your well thought out project, you really want to have full grasp of your target constituencies. If you're targeting a certain part of town, or if you're targeting, again, citywide, you really want to make that clear within this answer. And then Is the project open to the public? So this goes back to how it fulfills the requirement of the grant. Will it be an expansion of your project, or is this really a new initiative altogether? And finally, evaluating success. What would success look like for this project, program, or initiative? And how will you know you've been successful? How will you measure your program, project, or initiative success? So this goes back to evaluation. So are you going to do pre and post surveys, maybe a focus group, interviews, anecdotal information that you'll collect about your program at the beginning or the end of it? Will you take qualitative or quantitative measures? Again, that gives you the ability to really lay out what you are doing, how you plan on measuring it, and what that success will look like at the end. So that'll be key for the evaluators to know that you, again, had a well thought out program, and that here's what success will look like. So they'll get a full measure of your program. Next slide. And here we turn it over to Whitney.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here and to partner with the City of Charlotte and CIC on this. So let's just jump into number 6, which asks about the project team description. So for this question, you really want to take into account your full project team and not just talk about your program team, for example, if you're an organization. And if you're an artist and you are the project team, making that clear that that's the phase that you are within your journey and within your growth as well. So with the first part of this question, this is one of those questions that has multiple parts, right? But you still only have 350 words. So it's important to be super succinct, get to the point. Brevity is key here. As Autumn mentioned earlier, if your application is the 100th one to be reviewed, you want to make sure that your answer is compelling enough to still grasp the attention of the reviewers. So please describe the team implementing the project, who is leading it, and who are your collaborators or partners, which we'll focus on in just a second here. If this project is in collaboration with another artist or organization, please describe the role of each collaborator. And then lastly, what makes this team well equipped to do the project? So a couple of things I want to highlight here with the time that we have. So when you're thinking about a collaboration, you need to think about that holistically. Okay, and ensuring that each person who's playing a part actually has a role, an active role from beginning to end throughout the project. And when I say an active role, a role that actually makes an impact towards the outcome that you're looking for within your project. So keep that in mind. And I also wanted to highlight the qualifications piece. So what makes the team well equipped to do this project? So we're not just focused just on the resume here, right? We're think through lived experiences of team members who are collaborators, and or if you are an individual artist doing this too, same thing. Think about yourself and your own lived experience and what that brings to the table for this particular project. Of course, we're still thinking about education qualifications. We're thinking about projects of a similar capacity that you've been involved with before, that you've helped with planning with before. Your ability to actually execute this and make an impact on the community. That's what's important here when you're talking about your project team description. Oftentimes we just kind of ramble on the qualifications or degrees or trainings. Those are important as well. But with that 350, character count, this should be it is plenty of space, but if you are sort of a long-winded person like I am, you want to make sure that, you of course write your answer out and then chop off the pieces that you don't need, since this is a multi-part response that's required for this. For number 7, is this project a collaboration with other artists or an organization? Again, this is a yes or no question, but make sure it is a true collaboration. Okay, make sure that each member of the project team has a part that is impactful towards the outcomes of the project. Next slide. For number 8, for projects that answer yes to being a part of a larger existing program, how is this project an expansion of a larger existing program? So this can be confusing if we're, if we're not chopping it up correctly. So when you're thinking about your existing programs, and you are bringing in this additional, right? I think a word here, a key word here could be additional piece into your larger program. How is that impactful to the larger program? How is it an expansion that creates impact, right? We're not just looking at, hey, we're doing more, we're doing something a little bit bigger. Hey, we're going from, serving 7 schools to now serving 10 schools. That's wonderful, but how does it speak to and support the outcome and end product that you're looking for your project? So making sure that that distinction is clear within your response. And similarly for number 9, right? If you're answering yes to this activity being part of a larger program, meaning this is, it's not a new program, it is part of an existing program, how are the activities in the proposed project part of that program? So for example, okay, to help clarify this a little bit, I gave the school example. If you are, doing a performance in a new venue, that in and of itself is not an expansion. It's not new. The venue is new, but what impact is it having? So in your response, again, you have 100 words, make it clear, brief, and succinct, but also impactful, right? But if that new venue allows you to reach a new audience, or if it allows you to expand the diversity of the audiences that you are reaching, and that is in alignment with your mission, now you have an impactful answer that aligns with the expansion of your project, okay? So just making that example, making your response clear as to how the expansion or the program being part of an existing project leads to impact, okay? This is about impact, and how you can show and really speak about that throughout your responses here. For number 10, if applicable, how will you sustain this project beyond this grant period? If this is not intended to be a sustained project, please explain why. So, of course, we, as all funders, right, want to make sure that they are not backing this project, and after the next year or two, this project goes down the drain, right? We want to make sure, you want to make sure that your project is sustainable. What other funding sources are you looking for? Not just grants, but are you looking for individual funders or foundation funders, other potential government, local, regional, or federal grants that could support your project? Are you looking at corporate sponsorships for this project? It could be a crowdfunding campaign that you're doing if you're a smaller grassroots organization or individual. So thinking about this holistically, and how you're going to keep this project going beyond funding from the City of Charlotte, from the Opportunity Fund. And the second part of this question is saying, if this is not intended to be a sustained project, please explain why, right? If this is meant to be a one-time, again, high impact project that can take your organization or your craft to the next level, make sure you're able to explain that succinctly, and make sure that it makes sense, right? Make sure that it makes sense and that it is community serving. It is external serving, and it's not just, something that would only benefit you as the artist or you as the organization. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to be able to relate impact throughout all of these responses. Okay. Next slide. So question number 11 has a 350 character word count, just FYI. And so let's go through this question, because this is a big one. For projects that answer yes to whether the mission is to primarily to serve historically underrepresented or underserved audiences or target constituencies, in what ways, if at all, are you attempting to reach historically underrepresented or underserved audiences or target constituencies? How reflective of your audiences or target constituencies are your team, board, if applicable, or collaborators? So I think this question's another biggie, right? Kind of multiple asks within the same question. You have plenty of room to answer this, right? Pull out the information that's important. So think about this question in a couple of different ways. And what I would do is think about it in concentric circles, okay? So if you're thinking about your project sort of at the center of the concentric circle, okay, think about who this project is intending to serve. And it's not necessarily who you want to serve, right? At the end of the day, it's really who needs to be served. So think about those two dynamics as well as you go through this question, okay? And in the next ring of the concentric circle would be your team, the project team. If you're an organization, right, the actual full team within your organization who's undertaking this. And then if you're, of course, you know, an artist as an individual, how you are representing and how you are connected to that target audience. Okay, particularly if it's within the BIPOC, underrepresented and or underserved community stream of audiences. That's the next ring of the concentric circle. And then outside of that, the next ring would be anybody that you're collaborating with, right? Who is it that you're collaborating with? How are they reflective and connected to the audiences that you're serving? Okay. And I should have mentioned within that prior kind of circle, within your team circle, your board can be a part of that as well, right? They're a part of your organization. They're considered to be internal. How is your board reflective of the demographics that you're serving, right? Are you serving mainly Black students with an all-white board? What's happening with that dynamic? Because those things are important when we're talking about impact, right? Anecdotal, qualitative and quantitative, like Autumn mentioned earlier. When we're gathering and looking at impact, we want to make sure that the work that we're doing, especially if we are the arts and culture sector, is equitable, right? It's equitable. And we're making sure that we are truly, not just performatively, but truly reflective of the audiences that we're serving at every level, from your team, your board, the collaborators that you're bringing on board. Even in terms of, for this first part of the question, when it talks about how are you attempting to reach those demographics, don't only think about this as boots on the ground, how you're trying to reach those demographics, but also think about it in terms of maybe it's technology that you're using, right, to reach underrepresented groups. Maybe you're partnering with a church, so it just depends on how you are thinking about this holistically. But I want you to, let's broaden our minds a little bit here on how we can answer this. Again, 350 characters, it probably doesn't, words probably doesn't seem like much, but it really is truly plenty of space for you to get down to the nitty-gritty of what this question is asking. So take some time. One last thing I wanted to mention here, because I covered the questions that included the explanations for collaborators and partnerships. If you are, or if you have partnered with or have collaborated with, or if you plan to at some point within the next few weeks, if you have something happening or performance or something that's happening within the next few weeks before this application deadline is due on April 26th, the first thing you want to do is to get those letters of support. Get those letters early, because those will take probably the most time for you to get, okay, to get back. People are on vacation, they get sick. There's only a few weeks to get them back to you. So make sure that you are proactive in getting those letters in. Next slide. And for the financial piece, I will pass it on back to Priya.
Thank you. And yes, thank you, Whitney and Autumn, for those really helpful recommendations. I think those were fantastic, and you'll have an opportunity to get more of that guidance and advice and support if you're able to participate in the workshop, or whether or not you are able to participate on Saturday. You'll be able to sign up for one-on-one sessions as we move into the next phase. A couple of quick clarifications I want to make, just because I see some relevant questions in the chat about some of the things that Autumn and Whitney presented. Want to just mention that there are a variety of types of strategies and priorities in the plan, and as you may have seen, and some of them are more public facing, And some of them are maybe a little more related to, building and artists or organizations or communities, capacity to do something. So maybe a little bit less public facing and a little bit more kind of that internal work that then allows you to have the greater impact or strengthen your career as a professional artist or things like that. And so just wanted to clarify that you'll see a range of things in the eligible, excuse me, strategies in the plan. And so as you're describing how your project or program or initiative advances within the plan, you may be, describing a more kind of external impact or a more internal impact. And certainly if you have questions about whether that's eligible or how to talk about that in the most effective way, please feel free to reach out to our team, including Autumn, for how to do that in a clear way. Another thing I just wanted to mention about the idea of expansion or a new element is just really to stress that the original philosophy, which carries through now in this opportunity fund cycle as well, is that these grants are meant not to be supporting ongoing programming or operations. In fact, operations are not eligible. These are not to support operating functions, but really to catalyze something new. You've been wanting to try, or maybe looking at the plan, something in the plan sparked an idea in you that would actually help advance the objectives in the plan. And so whether it's something totally new or it's a new element, and I think Whitney did a great job of kind of differentiating between what would be the kind of expansion of new element we're looking for, we consider eligible. You might even think of this opportunity fund cycle as an example. We've done the opportunity funds a few times before. So that program is an existing program, and those activities, if we were seeking funding for this, those would not be eligible. But we do have a new element that allows us to have a greater impact. And that new element is the provision of coaching with grant writing coaches to support applicants in their applications. And so as an illustration, that new element is the thing that would be eligible for this grant, not the activities that are kind of the same thing that we've done before. So hopefully that's a helpful, another illustration of that. And then another question I saw in the chat, someone was wondering about, excuse me, I think the idea of, sustainability and the fact that these are 1-year grants. So the grant is a 1-year grant, and the project or program or initiative, the activities that you are seeking to get funded, those do need to be complete, by June 30th, 2025. So between July of this year and June 30th of next year. But it might be that this is something, again, this isn't something you're trying out, you're piloting it, maybe you're doing it as a bit of a demonstration project. And if it goes well, it's the kind of thing you might want to continue if you're able to get other kinds of funding for it moving forward, whether that's raising other funds, through contributed sources like the ones that Whitney talked about, or even whether it's the kind of thing that could generate income for you moving forward. And so maybe you can kind of sustainably earn revenue in the future, but it's that you need some funding right now to get it started. So that's what we mean by, if you are thinking this is something you want to do again in future or continue, then we'd like to know how you plan to do that. But it's okay if it's not meant to be something and it is a one-off, and it's going to have impact that way too. I'll just give you a real example of one and a made-up example of another. So a real example of one is last fall, one of a project that received an Opportunity Fund grant in the spring of last year was Music Everywhere's Confluence Music Conference. and that took place in October of 2023. And it was the first one that Music Everywhere and Charlotte Center City Partners were putting on. They thought that if it went well, they'd like to do it again, but really this was their first time doing it. And so it was the inaugural conference. Now, it was a great success, and they do plan to do it again. And so, you know, they are thinking about, well, after they received the initial grant from the Opportunity Fund, they actually did raise a lot of other funding through sponsors and other means. And so, you know, now they're looking at doing it again. So that's one example. And then another example might be if you had a one-off for, you have a total eclipse coming up. What if you had an amazing arts and cultural experience that centered on the solar eclipse event? Well, I mean, this is the one I'm thinking of, but you know, there's not going to necessarily be one every year. There won't be one. And so that's an example of something that you might say, well, this is a particular opportunity to do something special, but it's not intended to happen all the time or every year. And so I don't intend to sustain it. And that's okay. You just need to explain why you're thinking of it that way. And that's not a problem. So we only have a few minutes left. And so I'm going to go through the budget template really quickly at a high level. And then our team, our extended team between the city and Charlotte Creative, as well as Autumn and Whitney, are here to be able to assist you, support you in, as you complete your budgets, if you are moving into the second phase of this process. But what I want to do is just highlight some key things that you'll want to think about and that we'll be looking for. Number one is that the budget should not be an afterthought. It is an essential part of how you tell your story of what you want to do. So what you reflect in your budget does need to match what you say in your narrative proposal. And the review panels, we as a team, as we're looking for this, we really are looking for, does what we see in the numbers and the line items and the descriptions we have here, does it actually match, what you described in your narrative? There are a couple of parts of this, two sections. The top section of this template that we're looking at here is contributed revenue. So that's donations, that's grants, that could be in-kind, donations of services or equipment, things like that. And that's where you're going to indicate these different types of things. And you can see different, categories listed on the left. And you'll see there's a column where we're seeking to know how much you're asking for through the Opportunity Fund, and then another column, which is non-Opportunity Fund. They can see the number, column F, that's all the other types that you might need. If there's more money that you need to do this project beyond what you're seeking from Opportunity Fund, that's fine. And we just want to see what would that be. You're seeing an example that we put together to just illustrate how that might look. As you can see, these need to, there's a column H, which shows the totals. And I really, really, really stress the importance of column I, notes. You see some examples here where we filled in some detail around these numbers. And I can't tell you how many times I see budgets where no notes are included or not enough notes are included. Those are a really important tool for you to better explain what is behind the numbers that you're including. So you could say, well, I've applied for this and I'm waiting to hear, and I expect to hear such and such a time, or this money is committed, or this is, as you can see down, there's like a ticket sales, $5,000. Well, how do you get that $5,000? Well, this one shows 500 tickets for $10 each. So please use the notes column to provide additional information. It will help the review panels understand the numbers in your budget. If you can go further down, please. Thank you. So in the expenses, you see there's places for us to understand, the team, the people, the humans you are involved in making a project happen, you know, what's the cost there. You can see in this one, you know, in this example, those dollars are not being requested from the Opportunity Fund. That's fine, but we just want to see, okay, you know, they are being paid. How much are you paying them? And it's not that money coming from elsewhere. And it is important to show, if you can, what is, you know, how much you're planning to pay these, you know, each person. It gives us a sense of, you know, what they cost, whether you're budgeting enough. Sometimes things are a little bit under budgeted. Sometimes things look a little bit over budgeted. This is important. If you could go down a little bit further, you can see there's ways that you can indicate different types of team members. So certainly you might hire folks on a contract basis, but you also might have, if you're an organization, you might have some folks who are on your staff participating in a project, and you could list that there. And then again, we've only put in a few notes here, but definitely, you know, use all the notes you can to explain the different numbers. You can, you know, indicate different services that are going to be necessary. You know, maybe you have to run a specific place to have the event or programs, or you you need to rent rehearsal space that is, you know, something you wouldn't normally be renting as part of your regular activities. So you can put that in too. And again, just want to really encourage you to put as much detail in here as possible so that you can understand how you plan to accomplish your project. And it helps us to understand the feasibility of the project. I am going to see if we can do one more quick thing. And see if am I doing this one? Will you remind me? I can go.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
And then for anyone who's able to stay on, you can stay on for some questions. So just quickly, you will see that we do invite you to provide some supporting documentation to help strengthen your proposal. While they're optional, when used well, they can really, really help you have a stronger chance of getting awarded a grant. So some of the things you might consider are, I would say, generally speaking, what the supporting documents can do is illustrate either why your team is really well suited to do this work. You know, what is the quality of the work you've done so far? You know, what's it like? Have you done work that's kind of similar and positions you well to do this kind of thing? Maybe there's a past example. Maybe you already have kind of started working on this a little bit. Maybe some sketches or some initial outlines of how you want to do things. You see here, there's a list of some types of supporting materials you might want to include. There might be others that are not listed here. Think of this as a way to paint a fuller picture for the review panels as to what is it you're seeking to do, and what about your team and or your past experience really equips you to do this successfully. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the Charlotte Creative team to transition into questions. If for any of us who are able to stay on for a bit, and I am able to sit on.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Autumn and Whitney.
Sethu, I've been tackling some of the questions in the chat. Do you want me to kind of go through and read a few that maybe haven't been answered yet? Folks, if you can stay, by all means, hang on the line here, and we'll tackle a few more of these questions with Priya. And if you can't stay, you know, we'll update the FAQ, a document that's at opportunityfundclt.com with any new questions that we're getting here that haven't already been addressed. Priya, one person asks if they're curious if we have a suggested hourly rate for extra staff time. If we need to pay a part-time staff person to do some extra hours to help plan an event, what would be a reasonable rate? I don't know if you have an answer to a question like that or not.
Thanks, Matt. That is a great question, but I don't have an answer, because I guess I would say from my perspective, it depends on what the person is doing. So, I could see if perhaps someone helping out with some basic administrative work, that might be something that isn't a high hourly rate. Whereas someone providing some, maybe it's some consulting expertise that, could be something that is often charged at a higher rate, that it would vary quite a bit depending on what it is you're seeking for them to do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And folks, if you did drop a question into the chat, go back and check and see if one of our teammates answered that in the chat. Because if we're not going to read it out loud, it probably means that we tried to address it right there in the chat. Okay, let's see here. Does every member of the collaboration need to be a resident of Mecklenburg County?
Sorry, I muted myself. I need to unmute.
Okay.
Great question. No, it's okay if you've got collaborators outside of Mecklenburg County. A great flow of creative and other expertise. So it's all right. Of course, just want to underscore that the prime applicant, the main applicant, does need to be located.
The main applicant, that's right. Thank you, Priya. One person wrote that I thought it was said in a previous seminar that the project can be totally funded by the ask from the fund. You do not necessarily need to have multiple funding sources. Is this correct?
Yes, correct.
Yep. Secondly, knowing that you might not get the full ask, if you are offered less than you ask for, will you be able to reduce your activities? Like, for example, the project might go for a little less time or something like that.
Well, I think it depends on the nature of the project. What I will say is that in the past, we have rarely offered less than the requested amount. There have been a few cases. We definitely try to strike a balance between, not second guessing what the project needs to be done for, but still truly assessing the feasibility. And to that end, just want folks to be aware that the panels have a mix of folks with practical experience in doing these different kinds of things that we receive project proposals for. So whether that's producing events or as art educators or doing other kinds of programming, funding experience, a range of expertise is what we pull together to be able to assess feasibility and assess the proposals. So I would say generally we do try to award grants for the amount that is requested. Again, and that's when the projects, when the proposals are strong and the budget is really clear. I would say as an additional kind of suggestion, from the lens of the funder is, if you can make, I think the goal is when we see a proposal where it's a no-brainer to do it. Like that's what I would suggest that as an applicant, you're trying to make clear in your proposal is, you would not want to do this project. So I guess it's maybe a little bit of a nuanced answer to the question, but.
Yeah. Gotcha. A quick question about fiscal agents. We know that if you're an individual artist, creative, or if you're sort of an informal collective of creatives and you're not a nonprofit yourself, that you'll need a fiscal sponsor, a fiscal agent of some kind. We've had a couple questions about churches. Can churches be a fiscal sponsor?
I think that is fine.
As long as they have 501c3 status. Yeah.
Maybe that's churches have 501c3 status.
Yeah. And someone did ask if we can provide a list of, fiscal agents that are acceptable, or is it just an overarching nonprofit, of any kind?
So we don't have a list of ones that are acceptable because you might have someone that you are comfortable working with and they're comfortable providing this service for you, that we don't know of. So we don't want to kind of, have just a short list of folks that you can use. And they don't have to be located in Charlotte-Mecklenburg either. There are a few that we have seen past, applicants and Opportunity Fund grant recipients use that. If you are interested, you can reach out to the Charlotte Creative team for that. But again, it does not have to be limited to the ones that we're aware of that we've seen.
Thank you. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm just sort of scrolling through here. Should projects be profitable, ongoing profitable? You want to sort of muse on this for a moment?
Sure. Yes, this requires some musing. As the Charlotte Creative team knows, what I try to do, and Autumn, we've talked about this, it's, not every question has a very simple kind of answer. And for those, I just try to always be transparent about the way that either we, as the Opportunity Fund or the Infusion Fund might think about it, or any funder might approach it. While most projects and proposal budgets that I see, whether for Infusion Fund or in my past roles, for a project it's often breaks even. That said, we're not opposed to a project being able to bring in more in earned revenue. And if there's a mix of revenue, we'll say we do have board members who are particularly interested in seeing applicants thinking about a mix of revenue streams. So contributing earned, and feeling like those proposals are stronger. So we're not opposed to, a project being able to bring in more than maybe the cost, of it was, or maybe more than anticipated. What we ask is that if you are projecting a surplus of revenue to expenses, that you do indicate in your budget, well, what would you use that surplus for? Would you put that forward to say next, if it was a success and you're thinking of doing it again? If it is, then you anticipate putting that money right into, the next round. Or are you thinking of using this to, a surplus to put towards certain other programming or things like that? We do ask for you to address that surplus with using the notes in the budget. What I will say though is these grants are not to support fundraisers, fundraising events. And I can say that, in the past, when we've had an instance where it looked like the applicant was really seeking to just get all costs covered by contributed revenue, and then have all, basically charge tickets and have a lot of earned revenue come in on top of that basically would be pocketed. That has not been, I would say that has not fared strongly. Because in that case, it's the public benefit when the revenue is, say, being pocketed, because after all, these are still grants. And even though we can make them to individuals and informal groups, we can't make them to, say, for-profit organizations to for-profit companies. And so, and the grants are, you know, they involve public funds, so private funds. So, you know, those instances where it seems like, well, you know, I want to define myself as an individual, wanting to get everything covered by grants or donations, and then just kind of make money off of that I just see for myself. That has not fared well compared to other types of projects.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. I think we've made it through either by answering directly in the chat or aloud with you, Priya. I think we've made it through most of the questions in the chat. Folks, if we did not get to your question for whatever reason, feel free to email us. I believe it's opfundsubmissions. There it is right there on the screen, opfundsubmissions@charlotteiscreative.com. And again, please do consider joining us for the in-person grant writing workshop. We will be going over a lot of this same information, but also we're going to transition into some deeper dive Q&As with our grant writing experts in sort of separate rooms. And so you can get some of your more specific questions answered as well. Plus the entire team will be there. Charlotte is Creative, Priya, et cetera, will be there to answer your questions as well. Think of it as kind of a co-working, we're all together moving our applications down the field, sort of an experience with access to this great knowledge. So that is Saturday, the 23rd. And if you go to opportunityfundclt.com, you can sign up, register for that free session as well.